We shall overcome someday. Well, why don't we start today? Welcome to the Today Show by Nor-Shipping. This show is part of a 2-day-long global event where we will showcase the very latest innovation, insights, and business opportunities for the ocean industries. My name is Pia Meling. I'm so honored to be your host today. My day job is with Masterly. That's a joint venture between Wilhelmsen and Kongsberg. And I am passionate about our industry and our ability to change towards a greener and smarter future. Well, over the next 90 minutes, we're going to get the very latest news from the organizers behind Nor-Shipping. We will get a fresh market report from Rystad and Fearnleys. And we will also invite the power players, DNV and DNB, to share with us exactly what action they're taking to accelerate the green shift. We will also deep dive into crew change issues with experts from Klaveness and the Norwegian Shipowners Association. And last but not least, we will get to enjoy some music, and we will get a sneak preview on what is set to be our industry's next supergroup. Thank you for watching, enjoy and welcome. We are now at the beautiful roof terrace of insurance company Skuld in the heart of Oslo. And with me, I have the pleasure of having the two directors behind Nor-Shipping, Karen Algaard and Per Martin Tanggaard. You know, today, 1st of June, was supposed to be the first day of Nor-Shipping, with 50,000 people roaming the streets of Oslo. But due to a certain virus that you just might have heard of, they postponed the event until January next year. So, Karen and Per Martin, how has it been for you personally to work with this project and having all this uncertainty?
Well, I may have picked the worst possible timing to move from a commercial shipping role to the event industry when I joined the Nor-Shipping team 1st of March last year. But it's been really interesting and challenging. Thankfully, we have a great team. But I think we're all a bit tired of scenarios. We spent all of last autumn looking through scenarios. What would June be like? And then the scenarios kept getting worse, and we realized that the uncertainty would continue. So it became the only sensible option, really, to postpone.
And Per Martin, what was the reaction from the exhibitors and the partners when you decided to move the event?
We had a tremendous support from partners and the exhibitors. So all the partners are behind us on the decision to postpone, and also the exhibitors. And we have they're joining us in January. 80% of the exhibition floor is already sold out. So we are extremely happy with the industry, and I think everyone looking forward to meet again. Yeah.
I know I do, at least. But we need to ask Karen about the big question, the worst case scenario. What if this pandemic actually drags on? How will you solve it? Will you require, vaccine passes for people to come, or what's the plan?
Well, we'll follow the Norwegian authorities and their regulations. So, for example, on the vaccine passes, we will follow them, and so we'll follow closely what the regulations and the rules are at that point, of course. If we have to cancel, all the exhibitors get all their stand fees back. But we think that's very unlikely. Things are looking promising. Norway was always lighter hit than many other countries. We've been fairly lucky in that numbers have been comparatively low in Norway, and we're well advanced in our vaccination scheme. So all going well, the adult population will have been vaccinated by the end of the summer or early autumn. So by January, for sure, we're expecting that there will be some sort of normality.
We must be. We must be back to normal then. Yeah. But Per Martin, you have chosen action as the main theme for Nor-Shipping. So why did you choose that, and how will we experience that theme?
I think it was natural. After last Nor-Shipping, we had from the industry, it's a lot of talk. People saying, it's a lot of talk of sustainability, but we would like to see the real action. So the advisory board and the partners, we will see and showcase the industry and the companies that are actually taking some positive action. We need to see that. So the innovations, the collaborations, expertise from the maritime industry that are driving us forward towards a more sustainable future. That is what we want to see at North Shipping next time. And also, I think what is really important is that we go from or turn the environmental challenges into business opportunities. And that is what we're going to see from the exhibitors and the partners next time at North Shipping.
I can't wait. But Karen, one of the actions that North Shipping took in 2019 was to raise some money for the Global Mercy. Could you say a couple of words about that?
Yes. So Mercy Ships is our charity partner, and they operate currently one hospital ship in Africa, providing healthcare-like surgery to areas where there's otherwise very limited options. And they will now vastly be increasing their capacity now with the Global Mercy, which will be the world's largest civilian hospital ship. And she's now being built in China with Stena Ro as the manager. And they've just finished successful sea trials. So all going well, she'll be delivered this summer, and she will be then sailing to Europe to pick up the supplies, medical supplies and crew. And she will be ready to start operations in Senegal in 2022.
It's good to see that the money actually makes a difference. But North Shipping in January, it's going to be cold here in Norway. Will we have polar bears in the streets, Karen? How will this...
Well, I'm safe to give a no polar bear guarantee. Yeah. So you will be safe from the polar bears. It will be colder than in June, but we have this lame saying in Norwegian that goes, there's no such thing as bad weather, there's only bad clothing. The point being that if you have the right gear, then winter really is an opportunity to do other things than you would normally. So we think this will be, the one different North Shipping. It's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime winter wonderland edition of North Shipping. And if you bring a warm coat and some, sturdy shoes with good soles, there'll be plenty of opportunities to do other type of fun winter activities.
And we will go skiing, right, Per Martin, with the guests from abroad?
Yeah, we have the tram here. We can go to the mountains. It's like 20 minutes. In Oslo, you can go alpine skiing, you can go cross-country skiing. We have ice skating in Oslo city. So it's so many possibilities. So it's possible to prolong the stay and do different things next to North Shipping.
Great. Thank you so much both for this intro, and we will hear more from you later. But we have asked some of our industry leaders around the world to share their views on the future of the ocean space. So, see what they have to say about the most important actions that we need to take to ensure a sustainable growth of the ocean industries.
The most important action the industry can make is that every company has a very firm path towards a sustainable future.
And maybe the best way is to break it down into smaller steps. And for companies, that means, first of all, doing everything one can within one's own business to reduce carbon footprint.
Don't just talk about emission reduction targets, invest in decarbonization.
I think some of the new decarbonization centers that are coming up, for instance, in Singapore, will be able to help us work on these topics together as an industry.
Sustainability in the supply chain, even for shipping, relies on much more collaboration and joint decision-making, and this is where I believe we need to see more action.
We need all the sharpest minds out there to come and solve problems and have them realize that this is an industry where you can have significant impact.
No doubt we need to take action for a sustainable future of our industry. But to do that, we must really understand the markets that we operate in. So to do that, we now have a crystal ball session where we will deep dive into the post-pandemic macroeconomics and also the outlook for the shipping industry. So we are so lucky to have two bright minds with us today to do this. Dag Kielen, Head of Research at Fearnleys, and Jarand Rystad, CEO at Rystad Energy. And Jarand, could you start by taking us through the development of the energy markets since COVID broke out last year?
Yes, I mean, we have been through the biggest disruption ever in the energy market. We used to look at the financial crisis in 2009 as kind of the biggest decline you could ever have, but now it's been 3 times worse. So of course a completely black swan, and this has actually changed everything in the energy markets. All estimates, all forecasts made actually before April this year would be completely outdated. You have to redo everything. The trajectory going forward is completely changed, and also the structural component has changed quite much. So the energy transition is actually likely to happen faster, given what has happened over the last 12 months.
And Dag, what about the shipping markets during the same period?
I think we've seen very huge variations from segment to segment. It's no doubt that container shipping has been by far the strongest. Perhaps a bit of surprise, and it shows that we've been home and online shopping quite a lot, it seems. We've also seen very good strengths in the dry cargo market, especially driven by steel and iron ore. While we've seen the tanker market on the oil side has been very weak most of the time. It was very strong early spring last year after a surprise flooding of the market from Saudi. But of course the tanker market has struggled since. So even if oil demand has recovered quite a lot since last spring, that has been supplied by local storages, not by long-haul transportation on ships.
Yeah.
And then we've had more sort of average development for the gas segments, and we've also seen the car carriers coming back very strongly from a very horrible first half of last year. So it's a good mix.
Yeah, it definitely is. So Jarand, you are paid to help companies prepare for the future, right?
Yeah.
So what do you see towards 2030 in the energy markets?
No, I see a energy transition that is happening faster than anyone thought. It's really now it's happening. It's no option for any companies to not relate to this. So we have to kind of immediately, as fast as possible, change infrastructure and prepare for a low carbon future. And companies are taking this very seriously. They see that investors are expecting this from them, and also most of the governments globally will put very hard restrictions on the emissions going forward. But I think it's kind of a shock still, and many of the oil companies, I think in particular, they are still trying to digest this. Is this really happening, and what is our role in this? But I think it's a lot of new roles that could be taken. So I think it's a threat to some of the business, but it's also a lot of opportunities in this situation.
It sure is. So the next 10 years for the shipping markets, how you think they will be able to adapt, Dag?
I think we see very clearly 2 mega trends for shipping in the next 10 years, and decarbonization is of course one of them. And but there's still a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of new technology that need to be developed. A lot of creative engineering will be required compared to how traditional shipping has been. And I think for a bunker fuel like heavy fuel oil has been for shipping, it's difficult to find any other fuels that could take that role. So I think we're looking at a very fragmented fuel market forward, and of course a lot of difficult decision making. What will be the fuel in favor? And I think we also, even if a lot of exciting things are happening on ammonia, hydrogen, etc., I think it's worth having in mind that we've been talking about LNG for 15 years before the infrastructure was there to supply ships, deep sea ships in big volumes. So we need to have that in mind as well.
We have to move quicker this time, basically. Yeah. But talking about ammonia, Wärtsilä are currently running some tests on their very first ammonia-driven engine, both in Vaasa in Finland and from late summer also in Stord in Norway. And they do this together with their partners, Repsol, Knutsen, Equinor, and the Sustainable Energy Catapult Center. Take a look at this.
Everybody talks about decarbonization, and rightly so. But they also say that times are uncertain. In Wärtsilä, we see it a bit differently. Certainties do exist, and we are prepared to advise our key stakeholders on the best way forward for them. One reason why we are able to do so is our track record in innovation. From LNG to methanol, we have a history of delivering industry firsts. And in 2021, we will have an engine running on ammonia.
At Wärtsilä, we believe that fuel flexibility will be key to decarbonizing maritime. At this moment, final preparations are made before we start running the engine beside me on a fuel mix containing ammonia. Together with our partners Repsol, Knudsen OAS, Equinor and Sustainable Energy Catapult, we are conducting the world's first full-scale development and test program for an ammonia-driven combustion engine. Next door, right here in Vaasa, we are preparing to test another very promising green fuel, hydrogen. This way, we are making sure that alternative fuel technologies are ready for our customers well in advance of the markets and infrastructure required.
This summer, another test engine will be moved from Vaasa to Skuld for an extensive test period. Here we will continue to introduce more and more ammonia into the fuel mix. The combustion engines offers enormous potential for rapid carbon emission reduction. Fuel-flexible engine technology provides an upgrade path for existing and new vessels, from transition fuels to green fuels. This R&D project can bring carbon-free energy production to shipping in a matter of just 3 to 4 years.
Decarbonization of the maritime sector requires cross-collaboration among industry players with complementary competence. The SEEDS initiative is a true example of such collaboration, where we look at the complete ecosystem of infrastructure and clean energy supply to the offshore and maritime sector. For Grieg, being part of SEEDS has demonstrated the power of working decarbonization strategies jointly with other industry players.
Investing in alternative fuels is a short-term decision with a long-term benefits. It can drastically reduce the emission already today, while also providing a head start towards complete decarbonization.
Since 2019, the SEEDS concept has expanded into several concrete work streams, including Grieg Edge and Wärtsilä's program to launch the world's first green ammonia fuel tanker, coming out in 2024. The MS Green Ammonia will be utilized for transportation of green ammonia from a production plant in Berlevåg in the north of Norway to various locations and end users along the Norwegian coast. The action is on.
Dag, what do you think about what you saw here? If you were a ship owner, what would you do?
I would be scratching my head because there's some very difficult decisions to be made, as mentioned just before the video. Ammonia is of course one path. I know a lot of people are optimistic on behalf of that. Hydrogen, the same. We are talking fairly costly fuels, but of course things are developing very fast, like Jarand just mentioned also. So it's difficult to, or dangerous to underestimate it. But what I probably would have done, I would have looked for LNG biogas blend and gone for LNG still, just because of the experience we have from infrastructure. I'm once again talking about deep sea big ships, not local traffic.
Yeah. You have any views, Jarand, on the fuel flexibility?
Yes, I think first of all, we need a lot of innovation in this situation, and I think this is illustrating a very good innovations that is coming. But of course, you can ask what will be the winning technology going forward? Will it at all be the combustion engine, or will it more be fuel cell? Actually, from a climate footprint point of view, a fuel cell is normally much better, because you also have nitrous oxide emissions from ammonia. So I wonder whether that will be captured or not. That's of course a question. I think also batteries will take a large part of the near shore shipping market, maybe some of the short sea, but 80% of the consumption is for the deep sea shipping. So of course then we have to look for solutions like this.
Mm. Do you foresee that there's going to be more home shoring and protectionism after COVID?
I think that we might have seen peak globalization. Also driven by, for example, the energy markets. we looked at the energy markets that in 2019, 67% of the energy market was global traded energy and global traded and global price formations. In 2050, our analysis shows it will be like 23% only that is global energy market, and the rest will be local energy markets. And you will have much less global trading. Still, you will have ammonia, methanol, and a few other, but a lot of the traditional coal and oil and all oil products will be in much smaller amounts. So this is a deglobalization on the energy side. It will also happen, I think, in some other markets. We have India wanting to produce coal locally, which I think is not a good idea, honestly, from a climate perspective. But I see both trends. I think Adam Smith had some really good ideas when he wrote the book Wealth of the Nations, that you should produce what you're best suited to do. So that is my general philosophy, actually. So hopefully it will not be a completely deglobalization.
I hope not, because for shipping it's not going to be too great, is it, Doug, if we have more regional trade and less ton miles, basically?
No, the longer distance, the better, of course.
Yeah, for business at least.
Yes.
Yeah. We will meet later some of the power players in our industry, Kjerstin Braathen of DNB, for example. And I know that, you know, financing this energy transition for shipping or for the ocean industries is a big challenge. So do you have any challenge to her or to the financing parts of our business on how they can really accelerate this green shift?
Of course, banks and investors and everyone involved in investing in energy is, of course, now looking very much to the green side. But of course, a potential challenge and what eventually could be a black swan is if you cut the investments in fossil fuels faster than you can bring up the alternatives, the green alternatives, you would end up with an energy crisis. And that's we still got fossil fuels accounting for some 80% plus of the energy mix. So it's a substantial part still. And if you cut that too fast, you have a problem.
It's difficult to predict the speed of things, isn't it?
If I can comment on this potential energy crisis, I think actually that the supply side, due to shale oil and gas, is very flexible. So I think we will have continuing to have price fluctuations in the future, and even in a declining oil market, since the oil wells are declining more than 20% per year, you always have to reinvest in new wells, even in a declining market. So I think it will be kind of capacity in the industry to compensate for any kind of failed speed of developing new energy sources. But still, it will be an exciting commodity market, you know, with a lot of ups and downs and opportunities for business people.
Sure.
If I could also add that, I mean, oil has been under attack since the 70s. It's been under attack from coal, gas, nuclear in the power generation. Then we had a wave of fuel efficiency gains from around 2000. Now it's more on the EVs of the transportation side. But it has, and oil has over that period lost market share from accounting for almost half of the energy we consumed to about a third today. But at the same time, the consumption has doubled. So we need to differ consumption and market share of the energy mix as well.
Yeah. So I'm really curious, Jarand, since you're good at looking forward. What will be the next black swan that will have a global impact?
Yes, I mean, if I could say it, it wouldn't be a black swan.
Oh.
So of course it will be a lot of surprises, and the future will never look like we try to predict it. But at least I see that there are so strong trends now on the technology side with solar PV and EVs that are simply very, very competitive on its own. So this will happen. This is no longer a black swan. Even if hypothetically the IPCC panel came out and said, sorry, we miscalculated, it's not a climate crisis in any case, still you will get the energy transition.
Yeah.
Because basically of the competitiveness of the new technologies. So we will face a completely change of the global energy systems, I think, in any case going forward. And many of these technologies are already ready, but we need also some innovation, on, for example, on the shipping side, to see what will really be the green solution.
We need a lot of competence, a lot of new competence in the shipping companies, I guess. Do you agree to that, Doug?
Yeah, I think mentioned earlier that we need more creative engineering that we've seen traditionally in shipping. I mean, the last time we talked about creativity on that side was when we had more fuel-efficient ships, eco ships from around 2012 to 14. But when you talk to the engineers that had been in the shipping markets from the 60s and 70s, they're basically telling us that well, we actually just brushed off some dust from old technology for that. Now we need to do something completely new.
If I can comment on that also, I think the future will be very much about hydrogen and about CCS. But that is actually very, very complex infrastructures. So we cannot roll that out globally. So you will rather have industrial hubs where you will concentrate a lot of the industrial activity, the aviation fuel, maybe the big airports, and also the shipping fueling. Because every time you touch hydrogen, you lose a lot of energy. So that's why I think that the future might be that we get some 100 global industrial super hubs. And this is where kind of most of the materials and energy will be kind of concentrated, and also to take into account the seasonal arbitrage will happen with storage in these hubs also.
Let's hope we get some of those hubs in Norway. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom with us, guys. We are now very excited to have Kjerstin Braathen, heading DNB, and Remi Eriksen, the corresponding top man in DNV, on board for the Today Show. And in a session that we have called the Power Players, we will discuss what action they're taking to drive the green shift. So these are two of the undisputed global leaders in their fields of finance and classification. But before we start picking their brains, let's hear from a major cargo owner and charterer, Rystad Energy from BHP.
Every member of the maritime community has a responsibility towards delivering a sustainable industry for the people that come after us. It is our endowment to the people who will sit in our chairs in years to come. BHP recognizes this, and we recognize our significant responsibility as one of the largest bulk charterers in the world. We want to make a difference, but we also realize that we're not going to be able to make that difference alone. We're going to have to work with the industry, work with our ecosystem. And examples of this are when we did our LNG tender. The LNG tender and delivering LNG bulk vessels is not just a BHP thing. Many other companies around the world have taken up that baton and done the same thing with LNG. And that's exactly what we want. The water level should rise across the seas, literally. And deliver the sustainable outcomes we need. And as you know, very recently BHP has become a founding member of the Decarbonisation Centre, Maritime Decarbonisation Centre here in Singapore. And we're very, very proud of that. But what is it to be proud of? What we're proud of is that this is a centre that brings 5 very large organisations together with the MPA. And this is part of the ecosystem approach to deliver a zero carbon fuel that clearly we're not going to be able to do alone. In fact, I would say no organisation is going to be able to do alone. And we have to do this as part of the larger maritime family. And we're really looking forward to working with many different partners to deliver the sustainable solutions that this industry desperately needs.
Welcome to the Today Show, Kjerstin and Remi. Before we get into some of the topics that was raised by Batti, I would love to hear your reflections on what this past year has been for you. You know, how has it been to lead your companies through this crisis? Do you want to start, Remi?
First, I must say it's been a challenging year. It started for us already in January in 2020 when the outbreak started in Wuhan, and we established our global crisis team and to be prepared for the worst and to support the country chairs in different regions and countries when the pandemic traveled west. So, but fortunately, during this period, we have remained operationally and financially robust. And I would say thanks to our strategy, which we embarked on already in 2015, we We had a high focus on modernizing and digitizing our services. And this has helped a lot during the pandemic, because in March last year, almost 12,000 people worked from home, and we were able to serve our customers and support them. And particularly for shipping, it was our remote services, which we introduced already in 2018. And that helped us when physical attendance in person was not possible. We were able to support our customers and to make sure that ships could keep sailing.
Good. How about you, Kjerstin? You have some reflections?
Yeah, I'd say this year has been about huge volatility in emotions, in markets, in business activity, in economic activity, with actually ups and downs. I mean, the level of insecurity was unprecedented. For us also, it started early, but particularly in March when Norway locked down. And I remember my personal feeling. I had to go down to my office in the basement because I was quarantined for two weeks. And the feeling that the world was really going off the shelf and to be quarantined was quite panicky in the beginning. But after that, what I would mention is really the tremendous power and energy that actually a crisis can release. I've never seen people work so well together, being so innovative. Priorities were extremely clear. I mean, security and health of people, number one, keeping critical infrastructure up, number two, and helping as many customers as possible. Many businesses had lost all of their revenue overnight.
Yeah.
And of course, I think one of the things that is particularly remembered and felt in finance, and certainly in DNB as an institution, is actually the proudness of being talked about as being a part of the solution. This has raised the pride, and it's actually also increased the trust in us as a bank, and that's very meaningful to people.
So there's some good stuff that came out of this.
Yeah, there's some great learnings and some good things also.
Yeah. Well, let's move to the theme of Nor-Shipping, because that is action, accelerating the green transition. And I would love to hear from you, what do you see as the role of the Classification Society and the bank in this transition? And perhaps you could share some concrete examples as well on how you are taking action to help accelerate this transition. Do you want to start, Remi?
Yeah, first I would like to say that this green transition is the DNA of the company. DNB is driven by a 157-year-old purpose of safeguarding life, property and environment, and something closer to sustainability definition in 1864 I don't think you will find. And of course this is something we are working with ship owners, charters, OMs and also yards every day to deal with. To give you a couple of concrete examples, we have, which I think is very important, we have developed a digital solution for the IMO DCS reporting and also the EU MRV, and it's a fully digital solution from capturing the data, transferring it, quality checking it, trending it and distributing the data to the stakeholders that need this. And why is this important? I think this is will be more reporting demands going forward in left, right and center, and if you are going to do this manually, it will take a lot of manual work and labor, so it will destroy value. So to have very automated and digital solutions for this is very important, and we have this available now for all of our customers, and it gets a very good feedback. It's up and running for more than a year. The second I would like to mention is that we supported Hapag-Lloyd recently in obtaining financing for their very efficient container vessels that are now being built or will be built, and that this was verified against the green loan principles under the Loan Market Association. And then shortly after, we did a verification of a sustainability-linked senior note of 300 million euro. Bringing it back to Norway, concrete examples. Going back 6 years, we established something called the Green Shipping Program. It's known for that now. And it now has, together with 2 ministries, and that has now 80 partners and counting, and numerous pilots and projects has been realized as a consequence and as a result of that program. And more recently, also mentioned earlier by Rashpal, we are one of 6 proud founders of the Maritime Decarbonization Center in Singapore, together with the authorities in Singapore. So this is some examples what we are doing from one-to-one with companies, but also contributing in building ecosystem and maturing technologies.
That's some good action. What about you, Kjerstin?
First of all, I must start by saying that I think it's inspiring to listen to Remi and everything they've going on, and that rhymes with what I hear all over the markets. But finance and capital markets has a very important role to play, and the way we define our ambition today is to proactively drive the pace of this huge transition we're in. We've worked with sustainability for years, but I think we all also agree that this is a new phase that we are in the beginning of. There is already a huge reallocation of capital going on, and I think the role of asset managers and banks are a little bit different. Banks need to take the responsibility to make the world greener, not necessarily only do green. We have a vast responsibility to finance and support the new industries that are in the early phase of being built, but we also need to finance the transition. This is very much about businesses and activities who are the highest emitters today that need to move in a direction towards a lower level of emissions and a more sustainable future. We do this integrated into our business across all areas, together with a couple of other institutions. A few years back, we developed what we call the Poseidon Principles, which is a set of creating transparency so that we can actually measure our portfolio and the indirect emissions through our activity with our clients. Many might have also heard about the EU taxonomy now that we talk about, and which will be for all businesses to be able to measure what is green and what is not. The Poseidon Principle is the same, but for shipping and the maritime industry. We set specific requirements. We have requirements for responsible ship recycling as a part of all of our agreements. That's an example. And we work together with other partners in the industry. DNV being an example, we have a project together with DNV, Rystad, Jarand, Wärtsilä on ammonia-powered ships. And I think this is also a key takeaway from the transition and the pace that is necessary from this transition, that we need to work together to achieve that pace, because every piece of the value chain needs to have a changing piece. You cannot solely focus on one part of it. Of course, there is a guardrail in the bottom of industries and activities that we will not do. But I wouldn't say it's the main thing. The main thing is about impacting and helping and advising in the direction we need to go to, rather than excluding and not acknowledging that there are challenges to solve.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you're not excluding shipping, and that you're really holding the industry's hand through this transition, both of your companies.
I think what Kjerstin is saying here is very important, because it's not only regulatory bodies that are defining the future. You have finance institutions and banks. They are a key kind of carrot and a stickholder, and I think that is needed to kind of get things moving. There needs to be an incentive, there needs to be some benefits to be good and great, and there should be a stick for the ones that are below average. And I think DNB, as a leader in this, I think this is an important force kind of to help us go in the right direction.
So what kind of business opportunities do you now see for various stakeholders in this transition?
Well, I see opportunities everywhere, for sure. But again, I go back to this that there must be some carrots and some sticks. I think that is important. And then if there is that, there will be plenty of opportunities, and you have kind of a more defined territory to navigate in. And then I must say that there is one thing that is often forgotten in this transition that we are to embark on, and that's efficiency. to do things more efficient. And I think we have got tools at hand now, which we didn't have 10, 15 years ago. And that's kind of under the umbrella of digitizing and digitalization to create transparency and to create that transparency in a automated and efficient way. And I think that will help us kind of judge good from bad and to make sure that we are putting the money and investments where it's needed.
There are huge business opportunities ahead of us. I mean, the new industries that we need to either scale because they're here or actually build because they're not even yet here, that requires a tremendous level of investment. I think Citibank has made an estimate of a required investment level globally of $3 to $5 billion a year. I mean, this is expected to be a huge tailwind out of COVID as well. And there will be business opportunities, I think, for most industries, either within the select industry or in the pieces of the value chain touching what they're doing today. I mean, we're starting to see everybody acknowledges the need to scale renewables as an example. For Europe, we're talking the need of building up electricity from renewables 6 times in the matter of the next 10 years. Offshore wind is a huge part of that. In large, ocean industries represent a lot of today's emissions. Ocean industries also needs to be a lot of the solution for fixing this. So renewables, as one example, building up infrastructure and trading patterns to support the huge shift that we are going to see on electrical cars. The shift and upgrade or shift in vessels and transporting entities that needs to be powered in a different manner today generates tremendous opportunities. And you have mining and the growth of pure providing food also from the ocean.
Yeah.
So there's so many business opportunities, but it's not just about having the capital. You need to build a bridge to new business models and find a cooperation across, I think, public sectors and private to also make those businesses profitable.
Yeah, we are almost running out of time. It's so interesting to talk to you, but I have one last question, because ship owners and managers are now tough. You know, they're facing some really tough decisions on technology, new fuels, how to meet their emission targets. So, Remi, do you have some concrete advice for them?
Well, yeah, but you said regulatory bodies, charters and finance institutions will set the scene. I have 5 kind of steps I think you should consider if you are in that situation. One, you need to kind of have a feeling for where your fleet are, benchmark it, compare it where you would like it to be. And then you need to kind of develop scenarios of how stakeholder expectations are changing, how regulatory frameworks are changing. And then you need to find out how will I position my fleet or my company in that future. Then we are back to the technology and the operational pathways. What are those? And then finally, you need to decide on what optionality and flexibility you want to have in your strategies, because the future is quite uncertain, so you cannot really bet on one. So you need to build in some optionality so that you are not kind of stranded if you go down one pathway and that's not the right one.
Yeah. What's your outlook for the industry now, Kjerstin? Are you optimist around if we're able to really transition?
I am an optimist, and I certainly believe that both the ocean industries, the maritime industries, and the world will actually solve this huge challenge with the amount of efforts and capital and competence and initiative I see being thrown at this now. I must say my optimism is way higher today than it was actually 12, 18 months ago, because it's been a huge shift also during COVID where this is accelerating. Opportunities are there, capabilities are there, and I think Remi gave a very good description on how you, or advice on how you just need to have a plan. And maybe the one thing to add is to make sure that you have the people supporting it and you build the competence, because all of us are going to be faced with requirements for lifting our competence across new levels, and it's not going to be solved unless we put our minds and all of our efforts to it, but I really see that happening.
Great. Thank you so much both for coming and sharing your insights and your optimism for the future. We look forward to working together with you and create a prosperous future for the ocean industries. Thank you.
Thank you.
My hope for the future is that we can continue to support human progress by using ships to bridge the oceans, but find a way to do that with less damage to the planet.
To position our industry as a sustainable player in this world.
Our ocean industries have a greater opportunity to realize the sustainable ambitions by better use of technologies.
We now need to think about autonomous vessels. We need to think about battery-powered vessels. We need to think about solar panels on our vessels.
Digitalization is a key enabler of more sustainable practices. It's a key component of decarbonization and also for new business models.
We need to think about dynamic bridging from remote operating centers where we take people out of the way of harm.
So now I have the great pleasure of welcoming Ståle Hansen, CEO of Skuld. Welcome to your own roof terrace.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for bringing the great weather and the sun here.
Yeah, we can't complain today.
We can't. But as we know, there are not only sunny days in shipping, right? So the past year has been full of uncertainty and unknowns. And I guess as an insurance company, that's not, risks that you can't calculate. It's not what you love. How has it been?
That's right, Pia. But, also uncertain time is what we are here for. That's all about insurance. And we have been quite busy last year. The pandemic is, as you say, an unknown situation. It's caused quite a lot of increase in claims, especially based on the human factor. We had a lot of personal injuries, challenges with crew changes on board. And we do see that sort of the mental health and crew well-being has been an important factor to focus on to prevent losses. But it has been quite a costly year, yes, and busy.
And you didn't see that coming, of course.
We didn't.
No.
But we are, of course, prepared, and we have casualty response when big casualties occur, and we have dealt with it, and we have supported our members and clients throughout the year. So it's gone well, but it's been very busy.
Yeah. And are there any learnings from this experience?
I think to increase, and we have already done that, but to focus on the mental health and well-being, how important the human element is in shipping and in the ocean industries. I think that is crucial both for regulators and for investors to recognize in order to prevent losses for the future.
Good point. Now over to the green shift. How are you, as an insurance company, driving this green shift in our industry?
Well, we are an insurance company, so we are not developing the technology, but we do see the big shift into decarbonization going on in the whole industry. And we are also there collaborating, trying to learn the new technologies and how we can ensure that for the future. But definitely, we are part of that journey to learn the risks and then to assess them to produce a good insurance cover for the future. And also we see, the traditional ship owners going into renewables. And Skuld are also on that journey. We are now insuring, for instance, wind, ocean floating wind, and also autonomous vessels will be, I think, an increasing part of what we will insure going forward.
Great to hear that you're willing to take some risk. But look, we are here for another reason as well, or you are here for another reason as well, because you're one of those who actually makes sure that shipping's next supergroup keeps the pace. So on stage, we have now, or in the sofa area here, we have gathered some of the band members. So let's join them and continue the conversation about one of those things that makes life really worth living, music.
Thank you.
Let me introduce two of the other band members, Hilde Torp from Skuld and Viggo Bondi from the Norwegian Shipowners Association. And Viggo, you have played in a band that later became the Norwegian famous a-ha.
Yes, that's correct. And well, if I had joined a-ha, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
No.
But the fact is that our band, Bridges, we broke up almost 4 years. They had their first super hit, Take On Me. But yes, I'm a part of the history, that's correct. But maybe even more interesting actually is that, and I don't think very many people are aware of this, is that, well, when we played in Bridges, Morten Harket, he wanted to be a member of our band. And one day he approached me at home. We lived in the same area outside Oslo. I think I was about 70 years old, he was 19. And he explained that he had heard us playing and he wanted to be a member of our band. Well, I listened to his wish. I told it to my friends and we said, we don't need him because we are very good as we are.
That's amazing. Well, you have a lot of confidence then, huh? Yeah. Well, Hilde, can you tell me a bit about your passion for music and when did it start?
It started quite early, actually. I think I was 3 years old when I recorded this music cassettes,
yeah,
children's songs. And it's just been a passion. Music is a language by itself for everyone, and it brings a lot of good feelings and joy. So I have to have music in my life.
Yeah, we all do, I guess. But this band is, quite new. How are you finding the cooperation?
I mean, we all have played before, and I think that's the great thing with music. You can bring people together that don't really know each other that well before, and they all have a skill, an instrument they play, and when we come together, it just sounds great. So it's a lot about teamwork, coming together, and I think we succeeded.
Yeah.
So there's no conflicts or drama behind the surface here?
There's always drama in a band.
Yeah, should be.
Who is the star?
Yeah.
Well, not the drummer. We are always in the back. So it's those in front of the stage that will do that discussion.
Between the two of us then.
Yeah. But does this group or this band have a name? Or is it just undercover until further?
Well, someone has already called us Superband, so maybe Superband.
The Superband!
Might be the name.
What's not to like about that?
Easy to remember.
It's easy to remember. And you know what? We would like to take a little sneak preview at one of your jamming sessions for the audience and yourself, because this is actually a premiere. Let's see, we'll bring the laptop here. If you just can lean in a little bit. And here we go.
Det er kult, ikke sant?
So you haven't seen yourself play before, right? So what are your reactions?
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah, it is brilliant.
I mean, but if you want a star, it's Hilde. You know, the vocals is great.
Yeah, I think you all looked amazing and sounded amazing, but of course the vocals, yeah. But you are indeed a super band.
Super band.
And we are looking forward to your live performance at Nordshipping in 2022 in January. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Oh yeah.
Yay!
See you then.
See you then!
Yeah.
In South Korea, Hyundai Heavy Industries Group took action and constructed the world's first LNG-fueled VLCS. But they're 11,240 nautical miles away from Sandefjord in Norway, where Jotun took action and constructed the Hull Skater, a hull-cleaning robot for vessels. It's hard to find the next sustainable solution when there's an ocean between us. Nordshipping brings the industry together. Learn more about new ocean solutions and meet the companies that are taking positive action in Oslo.
Now over to a complex issue that most ship owners, managers and operators have struggled with over the last 12 months. Crew change. To help us really understand this situation, both politically and practically, we have the great pleasure of talking to Ernst Meyer, COO of Klaveness, and Line Falkenberg Olestad, advisor with the Norwegian Shipowners Association. Line, you have been heading an internal COVID-19 task force, right, to assist NSA members with these challenges. So were you prepared for this role, and what have you learned from it so far?
I think nobody was actually prepared for this role, but prior to the pandemic, I was working with crisis management and security with the Shipowners Association, and we are used to handling and supporting our members in attacks in the Hormuz or piracy attacks. So based on that, I think I used my experience from that in this task. And what we have learned is that the pandemic has been sort of engulfing the whole world, including the shipping industry, and we have worked politically, nationally, and everywhere in the world to try and resolve the issues for our members.
So, Ernst, do you want to share some insights into the really practical challenges that you face being a global operator?
Yeah, I'm tempted to look back to March 2020, where it broke out. And we found ourselves with 500 crew members sailing around, basically stuck on their vessels, and there were no prospect of getting them to shore or to get their relievers coming to the vessels. So it was a real stuck situation back then.
And you at some point had people in an alligator farm, you told me?
Yeah, it was some kind of... It's true, actually. We had an outbreak on one of our vessels in the US. It was at a time when crew changes started to happen, I think it was in June. And we had an infected crew member that came on board, tested positive, and we basically had to clean the ship. So where to put the crew? And we got some help from, I think the US Coast Guard was involved even, and I think they found a kind of vacated alligator farm, yeah, where they kind of lodged our crew for some time.
Oh, that seemed to work. Line, let's talk a bit about these vaccination plans, which is hot potato these days. Yes. Seafarers, should they be vaccinated before others, and why?
Maybe not before all others. I think at-risk patients and healthcare workers, of course, are in the front line of the pandemic. But at the same time, the UN General Assembly has had a resolution deciding that seafarers are critical workers and therefore should be vaccinated in line with that status. And also seafarers are in ships far away in the sea and have to cross across borders and can be sick at sea as well. So I think it's important for seafarers to be vaccinated. The challenge is that all vaccination programs are national. There's very few international overarching vaccination programs, except from the COVAX program, which we're also working to try and implement seafarers, especially those that are out at sea.
And there might also be issues related to what kind of vaccine the crew are getting, right?
Yes, we're just receiving information now, for instance, from China, where they are willing to now open up, but only for persons that have been vaccinated with the Chinese vaccine. And the same we're seeing now in the EU with only European vaccines being allowed. So it's going to be a challenge going ahead as well, we think.
So there's protectionism also on the vaccines.
Yes.
Politics. But Ernst, another item that I read about is that charters are now demanding, or some charters are demanding, a no crew change clause, or even demanding vessels that have an all vaccinated crew. How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, you're right. It's people are looking after their interests also on this matter, and you would wish for the opposite, that everybody should contribute to make things smooth. But yes, it happens. I would say that in many cases we come to terms on the matter, but we have seen lost business over it. So it's a topic, and to some degree a problem also.
Yeah. So this sharing of responsibility is not evenly shared, right? So ship owners are still facing most of the costs, I guess.
I think the kind of the contract regime in shipping has evolved over maybe 100 years with a lot of balance in it, and it's no Skuld. So to implement the new balance, which can be like random also, it can kind of click in differently on the parties. And you have sub-charter parties and you have bill of lading, so it's a very, very complex issue.
Yeah. And what about the lead time to get a new crew on board? If you have a captain that is sick for some reason and needs to be replaced, what timeline are you looking at?
Yeah, it could be close to impossible in some places. It's a real problem. Before, we could have a new person within 24 to 48 hours, regardless of where you are in the world. Now it can be even impossible, and you need dispensation to sail without key personnel, or it could take maybe 10 days due to quarantine rules and so on.
So Line, what action is Norwegian Shipowners Association taking to help this situation?
I think our main priority right now is to get vaccine access for seafarers. I think that's the only way that's going to get all of us out of this pandemic. And that really goes closely with the fact that seafarers are seen as critical workers, and we're still trying to get acknowledgement for that from governments all over the world, including here in Norway.
Yeah. And we did see, Ernst, when the Ever Given was stuck in the Suez Canal, how important shipping is. What would happen if all the vessels would stop, you think?
I think the first thing that you and I would feel would be hunger. I think we could keep without our furnitures or other kind of spare parts to the car or whatever it is, but it's actually critical for food supplies, for medical supplies. We will really feel it.
I hope the world is starting to understand this, that it is critical. Well, what action is Klaveness taking in this situation?
I think you would find our actions very practical, not so political as a player in the market. But we are looking after the welfare and the security, safety of crew members and the ship, obviously. So we are protecting our ships against COVID-19. And we also have to contribute to make sure that the people we interact with is safe from the ship. So that's something we are forced to. But I think, vaccination is the only way out, and we will really work hard to make sure that we vaccinate our crew members as quickly as we can.
You're setting up a new center in Manila for that, aren't you? Or expanding a center?
Yeah, we are part of a center.
Yeah.
It's a center where the Norwegian shipping cluster is taking part, and the Norwegian Shipowners Association is also a central part of that. It's actually a quarantine center for Filipino crew, where you utilize the time they're sitting in the quarantine to do education, for example. And now they're also lined up that same center to administrate vaccination.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are taking part in that.
Things are happening. Well, Line, what about the future of getting seafarers to join the ships? Because it now looks like it can be quite a challenging role where you're stuck for up to a year. How attractive is it to become a seafarer in the future?
Well, hopefully it'll still be attractive. I think particularly for seafarers that have been on board past their contracts, and also the ones that have been subjected to double quarantines, meaning before they leave their country and in the country where they arrive. I think some of them might not be motivated in the short term, but I think in the long term, shipping industry is quite resilient, and I think they'll bounce back.
Yeah, but you have any views on that, Ernst? You think they will forget?
I think this profession will survive. I think I don't think it's any different from other professions. The resilience is there. It's definitely an attractive place to work for many people.
Good. Well, is there also any kind of positive takeaways from these challenges? Anything we learned over the last year?
It has accelerated the digitalization, and I'm talking about kind of the low-key digitalization, a simple thing as having a ship video conferencing with shore. Now it's happening large scale. More people have been has acquired basic skills on IT. We see more data flowing between the ship and shore, which can be used for maintenance, inspection purposes, and so on. So it's really driving digitalization and making the life on board more easy and also more efficient in many ways. So it's a good accelerator for that, actually.
Oh, that's good to hear. What about you, Lena? Do you see any political improvements? Anything that we learned from this crisis?
I think I think the shipping industry has sort of received more positive sort of lights. I think there's more of an understanding to the key role, as Ernst talked about, in terms of if ships stop, then we won't get our food. And I also think that the shipping industry as a whole has really come together because everybody has been sort of hit by this. So I think the sharing of information, working together has really worked. And I think as well the fact that we now have established the fact that shipping industry is critical for the world. I think in the next sort of crisis or next situation that we'll be in, maybe that will come up a bit earlier, and that we will be able to move seafarers easier next crisis that we meet.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights, Lina and Ernst. Let us really hope that the worst part of this crew change crisis is behind us, and that we as an industry might be better prepared for the next pandemic, if there is one. But most of all, we would all like to honor and thank the crew members who have stayed on board long past their contract time, lived in uncertainty and difficult conditions, and of course been separated from their families and friends for too long. They are the true ocean heroes.
In China, Yangjiang Sapa took action and developed an offshore wind park. But they're 12,165 nautical miles away from Ulstein in Norway, where Ulstein Group took action and developed a walk-to-work vessel. It's hard to find the next sustainable solution when there's an ocean between us. Shipping brings the industry together. Learn more about new ocean solutions and meet the companies that are taking positive action in Oslo.
Welcome back, Per Martin and Karen. Now let's take a look ahead to 2022. So Karen, how will we really notice the theme action in the Ocean Leadership Conference?
Well, a bit like Per Martin said earlier, we will be showcasing the companies and the people who have actually shown action by doing something. And we've divided it into 3 themes. Power, we'll be talking about, the people with the power to change the industry. Money, funding the green shift, but also the new income streams and business opportunities, and people, the leadership, challenging and strategies in changing times. We are looking at some really big names, but you'll have to stay tuned, and we'll let you know once they're booked.
Great. But Per Martin, the big question, what about the traditional barbecue?
Yeah, it's we usually have the barbecue at the premises at DNB. We have decided together with DNB to move the event to Aker Brygge, Bjarnes here, and we will move pretty much all the events in the evening to this area, where we also will have after work, which is usually we have the festival street at Sjøholmen. We have moved everything to Aker Brygge.
What if some of the viewers would like to organize an event during No Shipping? Is there still room in the program for that?
Yes.
Sure. I mean, we have some new events ourselves. We have an autonomy summit that we're counting on you to see you there, Fia. We have an offshore wind conference. We'll continue the successes of last time with the technical seminars and the Blue Talks. But yes, there's definitely room in the program. So we encourage everyone to organize something either in Aker Brygge, which will be the North Shipping neighborhood, or at Lillestrøm, or indeed take their customers skiing or ice skating.
Per Martin, your very own TV show is soon wrapping up, but this is just the start of Ocean now. So what else do we have in store?
The rest of the day we will have themes from ranging from mental health in the industry to investing in the ocean. And we will wrap up today with the UN Global Compact and high-level meeting from the UN. So that will be an exciting day.
Yeah, because Karen, tomorrow there's something called the Hydrogen Blue Talks.
Yes, that's right. We're setting the stage for the maritime industry's energy transition. What will hydrogen's role be in decarbonizing shipping? So we'll be looking at the game changers, the commercial aspects, but the vessels, what's feasible, what's economic, the technology, what's going to work, how to get fuel, how to get it funded, and the incentives. So it's going to be really interesting. I would say it's almost to be considered compulsory, if you want to stay relevant. So I would encourage everyone to buy their tickets.
Great. Thank you both. It sounds like there's lots of not to be missed content, so stay tuned here at the Nordshipping channel.
The thing I look the most forward to when business is back to normal is to not talk about Corona. Not to worry about it, not to even mention it.
I'm looking forward to more, speed coming into the organization as a result of being able to meet and the world coming back to normality.
Returning our seafarers home on time and not having them worry about their families back home.
I don't think we're going to get back to what we think or deem to be normal or the pre-2019 environment.
I do hope that we will see better markets across the maritime value chain.
Of course, I miss going to conferences such as Nordshipping.
For sure, it has been notable how more efficient we have become without all the traveling to and from airports.
We wouldn't be in the position that we're in today, where the world is so focused on getting us to a zero carbon fuel solution if it hadn't been for the changes that we had to make in the last 18 months.
Thank you to all our fabulous guests and partners who have made the Today Show a reality, and thank you for watching. I look forward to meeting all of you here in Oslo in January 2022.